Unto the pure, all things are what? Pure. But unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure. But their mind and their conscience is what? Now I'm just going to tell you what I believe about verse 15, and then I'm going to try to demonstrate why I believe that. I believe that the pure in that verse are those who are, number one, believers, and number two, who have maintained and held fast their position in the truth. They have not departed the faith. They have not left the doctrine. They have not followed Jewish fables. They have not followed the commandments of men, and so on and so forth. They have remained fixed and steady in the position that Paul wanted them to remain in relationship to the truth. Now, there's another group of people in that verse, and he calls them the defiled. Right? Look at the verse. Unto the pure all things pure, and unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure. But even their mind and their conscience is what? Defiled. So you have the pure, and you have those who have what? Are defiled. Now, I believe, folks, that there are two different groups of people that could fit under the category of defiled. Number one is somebody who's never trusted Christ. Somebody who has believed the circumcision that he addressed. Go back, look at the end of verse 10, or end of verse, the end of verse 10. Especially they of what? If somebody has believed the message of the circumcision, are they saved? What's the answer? No, because you cannot be saved by works, right? We went over that last Sunday. So the first kind of person that's defiled that would fit that description is the person that is flat out not a believer. But is it possible for someone who has truly accepted and trusted Jesus Christ and Christ alone for their salvation to get confused and involved in doctrinal error? Yes, it is. So the pure are those who are saved and who have maintained their status in the truth. The defiled, then, in my mind, would be anybody who is either not saved or is in fact a believer, but has not maintained their status where? In the truth. Well, let's look at why I'm saying that to you. Come with me. Well, what does defiled mean? This is fascinating. Defiled means to dye with another color. To stain. To defile, pollute, sully, contaminate, or soil. Okay? In the context, those who are defiled and unbelieving have turned from the truth. How? By giving heed to Jewish fables and the commandments of men. In other words, they have sullied the pure truth by desiring to add something to it. Okay? Now, I already said to you that I believe some of these people may be believers, but they have defiled the truth through the adding of human tradition or performance or Jewish fables to the gospel of the grace of God. Now, I want you to think about that. That definition of defile. To dye with another color or to stain. I want to talk to the guys in the room for a minute. Has your wife ever asked you to do laundry? Okay. Picture this. Your wife asks you to do laundry, and she says, do the whites. So you get all the whites in a pile, you throw them in there, but unbeknownst to you, there is one red, brand new washcloth that is in the middle of the pile that you do not see. Could that possibly happen? Okay. So you run the load of laundry. You open it up when it's done, and oh my gosh, it's all pink. What has happened to that load of pure white laundry? It's been defiled. It has been stained or colored with another what? Color. You put it in, it was white, you take it out, and it's what? It's pink. Has it been defiled? You follow what I'm saying? How much untruth does it take to defile the truth? Come with me if you would to illustrate this. Come with me if you would to Galatians chapter 5. See, folks, my point to you is that it doesn't take much here. One red washcloth in that load of whites can spoil the entire wash. And then, you're trying to run to the mire quick enough to buy all new stuff before she sees it. Okay? Because that's what you're going to have to do anyway, isn't it? Look at Galatians chapter 5, verse 9. Paul's talking here about legalism. He says in verse 1, "Stand fast therefore in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made you free. Made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Behold, I, Paul, say unto you, that if ye be circumcised, Christ shall profit you what?" This is the fundamental problem with the circumcision, right? Teaching that if they wanted to be justified, they needed to keep the law of Moses. Acts chapter 15, verse 1. Drop down to verse 7. "Ye did run well. Who did hinder you, that ye should not obey the truth? This persuasion cometh not of him that calleth you." Look at verse 9. "A little leaven leaveneth the whole" what? In other words, a little red washcloth turns the whole load pink. If you have a pot of truth, just to use an illustration, and you drop 2 little tablets in there of untruth, what happens to the pot? The pot is what? It's defiled. It doesn't take much, folks. It does not take much to move someone away from a pure, undefiled stance in the truth. Come with me back to Titus. I hope that illustration works for you, because it worked for me. Not only as an illustration, but because I've done that before. So, and I don't even know if I was married. I might have done it to myself before I was married. I don't remember, but you understand the point. Verse 15. "Unto the pure are all things pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing" what? Pure. Why? "But even their mind and conscience is" what? Defiled. Paul goes on to say that even the mind and conscience of these people is what? It's defiled. Come with me if you would. Look at what he has to say about this. Hold your hand there and come to 1 Timothy chapter 4. I'll let you in a little secret here. My wife watches the Food Network, all the cooking shows and stuff on the Food Network, and she'll have it on, and I'll be watching it with her. And I'm admitting something here that maybe I shouldn't, but I've learned to cook a little bit from watching that. Okay, and one of the things I learned is how to sear meat. If you're going to sear a piece of meat, what are you doing? You're throwing it on real hot to get a base thing on there, and the idea is you seal in the juices and stuff, right? At least that's what Rachel Ray told me. Okay? But, in other words, you're applying it to an extremely hot what? Surface that is doing something to that. Keep that in mind and look at 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. He says, "Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies in hypocrisy." Notice, having their conscience, what? Seared. It's like somebody took an iron to their conscience and just went, just blotted it out, just killed it, just destroyed it by putting a hot iron to it and just saying, "I don't care, I'm not going to have a conscience anymore." There it is, and it's gone. Their conscience is what? They're doing what they're going to do, and do they even care one bit, one iota about what they're doing? No. Because their mind and their conscience, Paul says, has been what? Defiled. It's been seared with a hot what? Iron. And fascinating, that's the very next thing he says is forbidding to marry. Anybody who is going to forbid a member of the church, the body of Christ, to marry someone has a seared what? Conscience. Now, I won't go any further. You can figure out what church is teaching people that. Come with me back to Titus Chapter 1. Verse 15. Still talking about this group. He says in verse 16, in reference to those whose mind and conscience is defiled, he says in verse 16, they profess that they know God, but in works they what? Deny Him. Being abominable and disobedient, and unto every good work reprobate. Now, let's look at what he means here. Verse 16 gives us further insight into the defiled mind and conscience of those who he mentions in verse 15. With their mouths, they profess that they know God, but then deny Him by their actions. That's what the first phrase in verse 16 is saying. Now, I want to go on. Look at what else that verse said. They profess that they know God, but in works they deny that, but not deny Him. Being, so they're in an active state of being. Number one, he says, abominable. Abominable. You know what the word abominable means? It means very hateful, detestable. This word is applicable to whatever is odious to the mind and offensive to the senses. In short, unclean, according to Webster's 1828 dictionary. They are abominable. Now, he goes on to say there, notice what else? Being abominable and what? Disobedient. So not only are they abominable, they are also what? Disobedient. Hold your hand there and come with me to Galatians 3. You understand the concept of being disobedient, right? If I take my children and I expect them to do something, but I never explain to them what the rule is, can they be disobedient when there is no rule? No. Okay? So in order for disobedience, in order for us to understand disobedience, we have to understand that there has to be something that obedience or disobedience is in reference to. Okay? Because otherwise, it really doesn't mean anything. Look at Galatians chapter 3, verse 1. O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you? Here it is. Notice. That ye should not, what? Obey the what? The truth. So, what is it that the Galatians had done? They had the truth. The truth had been taught to them here, and they chose to obey that truth or be disobedient to that truth. Well, if you know anything about the book of Galatians, they chose to disobey that truth, right? And go after the teaching of the circumcision there and thought they could make themselves perfect by the flesh. He says that in verse 2. This only would I learn of you, received you the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of what? Faith. Are ye so foolish, having begun in the Spirit? Are ye now made perfect by what? So come back to Titus chapter 1, verse 16. When he's talking about being disobedient, he's talking about their stance in disobedience in relationship to what? The truth. Verse 16. They profess that they know God, but in works they deny Him, being abominable and disobedient. Notice, and unto every good work what? Reprobate. Well, what is reprobate? In addition, Paul says that these people are reprobate concerning good works. The Greek word translated reprobate means not standing the test, not approved. That which does not prove itself such as it ought. Now, I do want to run some scriptures with you here. Hold your hand here and come with me to Romans chapter 1. We've got to understand what this issue of reprobate means. Romans chapter 1.